Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Pints and Quarts, a show presented by Craft Beer Nation. Today is October 1st, and we have Jeremy Marshall, brewmaster at Lagunitas Brewing Company, joining us tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about his history and his road to Lagunitas. We're going to talk about where they are and what's to come. So pour that beer in a glass and get comfortable. And while the theme music plays, that would be a perfect time for you to subscribe to our Pints and Quarts podcast via any of your podcast forms, whether it be Stitcher, Pocket Caster, iTunes, whatever you use. And also you can follow us on Facebook at the Craft Beer Nation. We tweet at CBN Community. We're on Instagram at craftbeer_nation. And of course, you can find us on Google+.
Time now for a look back at the last week in the craft beer industry. Pour a cold one and sit back for an all-new episode of Pints and Quarts, presented by Craft Beer Nation.
All right, so again, welcome. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Pints and Quarts. As I just said, we have Jeremy Marshall, brewmaster from Lagunitas Brewing Company. Jeremy, how are you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good.
Awesome. We are very excited to have you on the show. Quick question: are you in Chicago or are you in Petaluma?
That's a real good question. I'm in California right now, as you can see by the little skiff of light out the window.
There it is.
Little clue.
It's still daylight on the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get right into it, Jeremy. Tell us a little bit about your history with craft beer and how you ended up at Lagunitas.
My story is all too commonplace now. I got my start home brewing, and then I went to brew school at UC Davis. Back then, there wasn't very many brew schools. There was UC Davis in California, and there was Siebel in Chicago, which is kind of ironic that you had this area and that area, two areas that now house a large Lagunitas brewery. That was the only place to go for a good brewing education to take your home brewing skills to the next level. Nowadays, you can get a good brewing education at almost every major university. But going to UC Davis put me in this lovely area of Northern California, and that's what graced my taste buds with my first ever sip of Lagunitas beer. And I decided that that was something that I could rally behind. And
so you started out at Lagunitas as a keg washer?
More or less.
I don't know. Oh, really?
Yeah, I worked on the bottling line. If there's one thing every aspiring home brewer needs to know, is that you got to clean the labeler. And that just means scrubbing glue off of all these minute parts. It's 10 times worse than detailing the nastiest car you could ever think of. That's what it's like.
Well, hey, you gotta earn your keep, right? I mean,
yeah.
You gotta start from the bottom to get to the top. That's how you get the respect of everybody behind you, right?
That's true.
So let's talk a little bit about Lagunitas recipe creation and formulation. Is that all you? Is there a team? Is it you and Tony?
Yeah. Originally it was, Tony likes to say that he wasn't the best brewer. So he moved from Chicago to Northern California, and he learned from some really, really good old school brewers right here in NorCal that taught him how to use hops. And originally Tony was like, wow, are you serious? Do I really, really put that many hops in a batch? Because it seemed insane. And then over time, so a lot of the old school recipes, IPA, cappuccino stout, Maximus, those are all Tony. And then I came along, and Tony's recipes has hops that I'm like, Tony, these hops don't exist anymore. He's got a lot of recipes with Eroica hops and antiquated things, and if the hop doesn't have good agronomics, the hop growers. So I suggested very gently over time, hey, let's try some of these newer hops that some people say have cannabis-like qualities, like your Simcoe, your Columbus, but we were all about, anything that we looked up to Anchor Brewing because they did Liberty Ale. That was first beer ever dry hopped with Cascades, and I would argue that's the beer that set the IPA revolution right here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we looked to that. And then to further answer your question, I did a few recipes on my own, and nowadays it's a democratic process. We welcome insight from beer drinkers, from other brewers here at the brewery. It's all just one big collaboration, kind of.
Are any of your recipes in production right now?
Yeah, I mean, not to sound egotistical, but there were a few that I did do, but I really don't like to take credit for them. But if we have to go there,
Gotcha.
Imperial Red, Hop Stupid, Little Sumpin Sumpin, Lagunitas Sucks, and a lot of the newer ones. And thankfully, lately, a lot of the newer ones lately are not mine, which is good. You can't hog it.
Right.
How difficult was for you to transition?
Your mic went out for a second there.
Okay, I was just wondering, like, the whole transition to get all those recipes done the same into Chicago, because it's not an easy thing. It's not like just I'm gonna brew this recipe over there. Now there's a lot of variants. So
Yeah.
did you guys, how hard was that?
If I can tell you only one thing, it's what separates the big dogs from the little dogs. It's not what you know about brewing. It's what you know about process. Recipes don't mean anything. They don't matter at all. If you give a set of home brewers the same recipe, you will get you get a lot of different beers. So the challenge of brewing the same beer in a different place, such as Chicago, that's where you really learn. And I felt alive again as a brewer. If you just brew and you live in California and you make the same beers, and you do the same thing. I mean, unfortunately, the way good beer is made is doing the same thing the same way every time.
Yeah.
It's not like screwing up and accidentally making a new beer. That's not tolerated in the commercial world. So going to Chicago, there was a lot of learnings, and that was a lot of fun, and it was a challenge. And you have to adjust. Sometimes this is what I learned. Sometimes you have to change things to make them the same.
Did you guys have to RO your water and everything to make the water in Chicago match the water in California?
It's interesting you would mention that. We're of course in a major water shortage here in California. It's water is a big problem. I'm sure everyone knows about the fires and all that, and I have a stance against RO because the only thing unique to a brewery is the guys running around making the beer and the water. All that other stuff is mass marketed. You can buy the yeast, you can buy the hops, you can buy the grain. The same hops I buy, they can get at Ballast Point and they can get them at Goose Island. And it's so I'm kind of against that. So we did not RO the water, and instead we had to get really creative. And luckily, the water from Lake Michigan is pretty high quality, and it took a little bit of messing around, but we were able to replicate the water of here, which is Russian River water.
Okay. So let me ask you this. I mean, okay, so obviously we have to mention Heineken, right?
Sure.
I mean, everybody's talking about that. I mean, and I don't expect you to say, oh, I was totally against the deal. I hated doing it, but hey, I it's my job. I got to work here. Was there like a general feeling, not how you felt, but was there maybe like a general feeling amongst everybody when the deal was announced?
What do you mean? Like, did we know something was going to happen, or
no? Once the announcement was made, were people pissed? Because you know how craft beer, how us craft beer people can be, how people
Sure.
stand against selling out or perceive selling out, stuff like that. Was there a common
worry?
Yeah, a worry from some of the people there.
I mean, with any people don't like change. So anytime they hear change, they worry. But really, the first instinct around here was like, shit, we get to have our Christmas party in Amsterdam. They were really stoked. I'm telling you. And it's like not like partnering with banks. They are brewers. They know a lot about beer. I haven't met a lot of the Heineken guys, but the guys I have met have blown me away. They are brewers. You can talk to them about mash pHs. You can talk to them about hops. They do get a little scared when I tell them the hopping rates that I like. They say that's a little bit much. But overall, it's been, pretty good internally. And I went to the GABF just recently. I'm sure some of you guys were there. I hope some of you guys were there in Denver. And a lot of brewers that I know are coming up to me and saying, congratulations. A few brewers punked me and hid some Heineken back for me to find, and and it's all in good fun, And I think overall everybody's pretty stoked because, let's face it, it's like they're a pretty awesome brewery to be a part of if you consider what the other, I don't want to name any names, but if you consider the other breweries.
Mm-hmm. So Tony made he made it pretty clear that a large part of that deal was about distribution.
Yeah.
And how you guys are going to now be able to take advantage of Heineken's distribution network. We had one of our members of Craft Beer Nation. His name is Millard Vinalon. I hope I said your name right, Millard. And he has a question. He said that as a result of that, are you guys going to now run packaging operations 24 hours a day?
Well, that's a funny question because we already run packaging 24 hours a day.
Well, there you go.
In both Chicago and Petaluma.
Mm-hmm.
So we already did. I don't know if that's a good answer or not.
No, absolutely. So Millard actually had three questions. The second part of it was, so if you're going to take advantage of Heineken's distribution network, obviously you're going to go into a lot of new places where you currently aren't.
Yes.
So that means that there's going to be increased production. Going back to what we spoke about earlier in regards to the drought in California, how do you, and this may not necessarily be a question for you, maybe this is I don't know who the question is for, but I'm going to ask you because you're here. How are you guys going to deal with the drought situation in California when you have to increase production?
Well, we're hoping for an El Nino year first, and the Pacific Ocean is quite warm, which bodes well for an El Nino year.
Okay.
About the going into international markets, it's not about flexing. It's really still about discovery. When I started working for Lagunitas, we did about 18,000 barrels a year, which is now the level of a brewery that these little guys are at. It took us 12 years to get to that level. Nowadays, people get to that level in 2 years. But back then, I used to work on the bottling line, like we were talking about, me cleaning up the glue and all that. And our six-packs used to say, from Bombay to Petaluma. It was a little pun on India Pale Ale.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so dumb. I actually thought that beer that I was packaging and sending and some of it was gonna export to India. And I was like, how cool is that? And then I realized, oh, that's just clever marketing.
Yeah.
And part of this Heineken deal is shit, we might actually sell a tiny little bit of beer in India now. It's selling beer internationally is like the scariest thing in the world. Because the last thing a brewer wants is to have someone experience their beer and bring it to their lips and have it not be in tip-top shape. So for us, it's about like, how do you figure out who to partner with to make sure that all that goes smooth. It's not about forcing it to anyone. It's not about corporate sponsorships and big banners. It's still a process of discovery. But it's like, if they're going to discover it, it ought to taste fresh, and it ought to be good. And quite frankly, there's going to be markets where our beer might go, where they've been drinking lager beer forever, and they're going to have the same reaction perhaps some of our dads had to the beer we like to drink. They're going to go, oh, God, that tastes like flowers and dirt, and, this thing, and you know what? I mean, lager beer is still king.
Yeah.
And we forget that as a bunch of beer nerds.
Yeah. Well, in America, I think. as a beer nerd, and also just being exposed to so much American craft beer, we do tend to forget that on a global scale, lagers are king. I mean, particularly light adjunct lagers, right? I mean, well, maybe not always adjunct lagers, but yeah, light lagers are king. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Now, so you see Hop Stupid being your forward beer when you start moving beers out of U.S. Is that going to be one of your main beers?
I definitely think we should lead with a triple IPA.
Of course not. No way.
I think the Lagunitas IPA. Some of the beer geeks make fun of it because it's not hoppy enough. It's they drink it and they say it's not beer from some other brewery that uses a shit ton of hops. And well, we did that on purpose. It's supposed to have some malt, and it's not 7 pounds per barrel, and it's supposed to be an approachable IPA, and that would be the one that we lead with. And if people like it, great. I mean, for all I know, they're gonna freaking hate it, and that's cool too.
Don't be afraid to drop the.
Sorry, I was wondering, that was the other one I was going to bring up. I was expecting maybe the Lagunitas IPA and your pills. I can see those two being the pills to kind of lure the lager drinkers in, and then
boom, hit them with an IPA.
I think, we don't have a strategy in terms of like the old. I don't know. I think the IPA is the kind of the lead.
So, and for me, that's always the beer that I would give anyone who's never had Lagunitas. That's my starting beer for them, is have the IPA and go from there.
Yeah. We another member of our community, Dan Berger, and he had a question that was that speaks basically about your global strategy, and it's going to be a lot of beer for you guys to make. So is it reasonable to assume that some Lagunitas will be brewed in Europe by the guys at Heineken, or no?
Do you guys have a heartburn pill? So yeah, it's not stuff that hasn't crossed my mind. For us, the possibility that there's certain things that excite me as a brewer, and there are other things that don't. But one thing that definitely excites me is a challenge. And the second thing is fresh beer going out. So we can brew beer in Chicago, we can ship it here, and then it goes here, and then it gets stuck in this stupid little canal, and whatever happens, and like before you know it, someone's getting an old beer. Well, if supposing that the people are digging the beer, and it's like, crap, we can't, we need to make this somewhere else, then yes, the answer is yes, we would brew it. And keep in mind, Heineken actually owns breweries that are 20,000 barrels. I mean, that's like a few pints to them, and yet they choose to own them, and they continue to own them. Now, I don't know how suited a lot of these places are for our kind of beers, and I will tell you one thing: if we're going to brew it, it's going to be to our specifications.
Yeah.
It's going to taste just like NorCal. it's going to taste just like Southside Chicago. You're not going to be able to tell a difference. And if that's not the case, then we're not going to do it.
Yeah, and that's the important thing. It's still your beer. Yeah. Go ahead, Freddie.
Yeah, quick question. So unrelated to the whole purchase and sales, and I kind of want to know about your barrel program at Lagunitas. You guys are now in Chicago as well, and I'm a big fan of the High Westified coffee stout you guys released, and I just want to know a little bit more. If you could tell us how that's going. You guys are expand that barrel program, or are we going to see some other beers in the works here?
Well, you're definitely going to see a lot of other beers in the works. You will still see High Westified, but I'll tell you one thing: the bourbon barrels are in great demand worldwide, because, as you know, the life of a bourbon barrel goes on to be repurposed for other spirits. Yeah, Scotch, tequila, rum. The first bourbon barrel I ever bought to put beer in was $65. If I want to buy a bourbon barrel right now, it's 3 times that.
Wow.
That's coming from worldwide pressure on that. So that doesn't mean that we're going to make any less. In fact, we're expanding. We're going to keep making more and more High Westified. But there's a lot of other things that we've made in the past that we felt were very, very special. We did a Hairy Eyeball aged in a port barrel. We're experimenting more and more with sours, even though we always thought there's a really beautiful brewery up the road from us that sours is their thing. So we always kind of focused on bourbon barrel aging rather than souring in wine barrels, because I just really feel nobody does it better than them. I'm sure you guys know who I mean. And anyways, and then other than that, we're always looking at new ways to push the envelope with hops, because ultimately, we're a hop forward brewery. I was at GABF. A lot of guys came up, I'd be pouring them. They're like, which IPA should I have? And I'm like, that's a little knock. Lagunitas only makes IPAs, and I'm like, well, duh. I love IPAs. I love having a choice of IPAs. Wouldn't you? And so what we're experimenting with is new hop flavors that expand beyond just our wonderful friends in Yakima and their breeding programs, where they're constantly creating new hops. We're looking at new processing technologies, new extraction technologies. We're actually challenging our friends up in the Yakima Valley to produce different hop products, and I don't mean oils, and I don't mean supercritical extracts, okay, whole other things. Okay. And sorry I'm being so vague, but it's all kind of
Yeah.
And so ultimately what we want to do is we just want to make it to where, someone does this, they open it up and they say, wow.
Absolutely.
That's all I care about.
So on the same segment, so do you think that with the new space you have at the Chicago brewery, is that going to help you to increase your bourbon barrel? Because it's a matter of space as well, right? It's not just having barrels. You have to have a place to put those barrels. So does the Chicago brewery will help with that?
It's funny. You would think that because the cost of just letting stuff sit in place for many, many months, obviously in Southside Chicago, quite a bit more economically viable than Sonoma County, California. But we don't really have a rhyme or a reason or a plan. We got bourbon barrels all over the place at both sides. You are correct, though. We're going to be adding a ton of bourbon barrels, and we are adding a ton of bourbon barrels to Chicago. Lately, we've also been taking some from Willett, trying to go a little bit more local. So like High West is in Utah. They're a closer distillery to California. Willett is, I think I should know this, closer to Chicago.
Kentucky.
And so they're going to be doing that. But we are not like, we're not like Bourbon County Stout, where we have a rollout plan. We have we can tell you our number of barrels in 2016, 2017. It is pretty haphazard. And and that, that's all right,
So you said that the Chicago brewery kind of made you feel alive again as a brewer because it was almost kind of like starting over again.
Yeah.
You gotta be equally as excited if that's the case about your new facility in Azusa, right?
Yeah, definitely. I am excited about that shorter airplane ride. You know, I am worried that as many people are going to say bro down there as they do up here. Whereas when you go to Chicago, like no one says bro. That's how you know you're in Chicago. Um, it will be a whole new feeling, and there will once again be some more technical challenges with the water. You know, luckily, they do enjoy a very, very good watershed, and a lot of people don't realize that. That was part of our guiding decision. But the San Gabriel Mountains get a lot of precipitation, and that's what we're counting on down there. And then when all else fails, it doesn't help to look at those that came before you. And who came before us there? Well, Miller Coors has a huge plant. And I think I heard that when our Azusa brewery is online, we will use in 1 year the amount of water that LA uses in I think like a minute. I can't remember exactly, but it's like pretty astounding because,
wow,
you know, it's just, we're even though, you know, Lagunitas is a big name, and we live in this world where we think craft beer is huge. It's like we're still pretty small.
Yeah. Is Azusa gonna is it just gonna be a production facility, or is it also are you gonna have a tap room there as well?
Oh yeah.
A bunch of crazy one-offs.
Oh yeah. There's no such thing as coming to the neighborhood without coming to the neighborhood.
Right.
So,
guns blazing, right? Well,
yeah.
figuratively speaking. Right?
Yeah. Right. No, it's gonna be very reminiscent of probably the facility here where I'm at right now in Petaluma. In fact, if you go to the area, it has a very similar feel to Petaluma. There'll be a tap room. There'll be weird events. We'll have beer circuses. We'll have all kinds of charity events. We plan to revitalize distinctly Lagunitas style just as much there as we do in Chicago and here, and give it some life. And you know what? Quite frankly, they are stoked. There's all levels of stokedness going on coming our way every day. In fact, they're like, hurry up.
Yeah. Well, you know what? And I'm going to use this opportunity to transition to us talking about a few news articles, because this particular article that I found kind of plays right into exactly what you just said, and it's about Modern Times looking to expand up into the LA area, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I mean it's going to be right on the heels of you guys, and so Modern Times along with you guys along with Modern Times and along with I think Hangar 24 is also in LA.
I believe so, yeah.
Hangar 24, and then Golden Road, who just unfortunately got purchased by Miller. LA is almost kind of experiencing a craft beer renaissance. I mean, it's almost like they're trying to be San Diego North, it seems like, right?
Yeah.
Because the breweries that are there seem to be really high quality, sought out breweries, and I think that's a fantastic thing for LA. So I can totally understand why they're looking at you guys like, oh, totally, come on, because it only means good things for the craft beer fans in that area.
Yeah, I agree. I used to think that, why doesn't LA, 30 million people drink any craft beer?
Right.
But San Diego kills it. San Diego, it makes so much good beer. They really do. And I was like, maybe everyone in LA is just watching their figure, and they're worried about them calories, and
Yep.
And then I realized they're just that's not true. They're just not. They don't have access. They're not exposed. They want it. It's like kind of like the southeast of the United States. They want good beer too. They just haven't had access. So now that that's coming in, they're going to wake up, and it's going to be a big deal. There's a lot of people down there, and San Diego is a beautiful thing. I mean, I don't even know how to describe how good the beer is down there. You guys know that, but
yeah.
And the fact that it's right so close to LA, and LA is like, a vacuum. It is kind of strange,
It's it might be a little bit of an understatement to say LA is a thirsty market. So I mean that thing might take off even more than you guys are anticipating, man. You're gonna open up this new facility and end up having to expand before you guys even know it.
That wasn't the plan. I mean, honestly, when we chose Azusa, it had nothing to do with being in Southern California. Honestly, we were looking in the Pacific Northwest, which personally that would have been my preference. I like I like the weirdness of Portland, Oregon, and not necessarily that's where we're going to be. We were looking at Spokane. Basically, we were looking at water. We were looking at like where do they have water. And when we dug really deep into it, we were surprised. We were surprised to learn that, holy crap, there's a lot of water to be had in LA and on the foothills rather of the San Gabriel Mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a testament how the craft beer is growing, right? Because now we have Lagunitas now trying to expand outside of U.S. You have Modern Times. And we also had Dogfish Head announcing, they got an investment, 15% stake from LNK Partners in New York.
Yeah.
Because they just went through a $50 million expansion. A few years back, Lagunitas have a big problem. They tried to stretch too thin, and they had to pull.
Dogfish Head, not Lagunitas.
Sorry, Dogfish Head spread kind of thin, and they had to pull from a lot of markets. So now they did this expansion to try to reach and go back to those markets, and they are back in many of them again. And I think because of the growth, they decided to also take some investment money. On their case, though, the way it's working is they have a buyback option. So they will have a period of time where Dogfish Head can buy all those equities back and own that back again. But still, it's another big brewery, another big name. I mean, Sam Caligione. There's nobody in craft beer that doesn't know him. It's just growing. Everybody's growing. There's so many brewers around, and there's more demand. And I think that's going to be a trend that we're going to see more and more from now on.
I think that speaks a lot to the popularity and the emergence of American craft beer because, I mean, you want to grow, right? And sometimes a good leader has to recognize that, like for example, when Sam first stepped down from being the CEO to just being, I think, the president, like
the chairman,
Sam, the chair, and Greg did the same thing with Stone. Those guys,
Kim Jordan did the same.
Those guys, there were brewers who ended up being CEOs, right? Yep. So their skill set may not necessarily be that of a CEO, and a hallmark of a good leader is you have to know when to let somebody else take the reins. I mean, they took the companies as far as they could as brewers, playing the role of CEO. But sometimes if you want to grow, you got to bring in somebody else who has more skills at that particular thing than you do. And the same thing goes as far as expansion. I mean, they may not have had the capabilities to expand to where they wanted to go on their own, so that's why they had to bring in outside resources, which is also along the lines of what Lagunitas did with the Heineken deal. I mean,
you can't say it any better. Brewers don't make very good CEOs. I mean, we're good at like, shoveling mash and like being moody and making really terrible jokes in the bathroom. I mean, growing, like, you have to realize that the end of your own abilities, like, and the other thing is that we're in a true paradigm shift right now for craft. I mean, let's face it. November was a very busy month, or September, rather. It was like we saw a lot. We got Firestone, St. Arnold, Lagunitas, and it's like there's only so many. Like growth is incredibly expensive, and banks are only going to go. I mean, you can only borrow so much money from a bank, even with these low interest rates. So what do? You've got the ESOP route. You've got the private equity money, which I personally am at odds with, because it's like, it's kind of the and then it's like partner with another brewer, sell outright, or do nothing. Yeah. And it doesn't hurt to recognize those brewers out there that just do nothing.
I mean, that goes. That's my opinion to and it speaks to the market saturation or lack thereof, in my opinion. Some brewers are cool with not doing anything. They're cool with where they are, and they might be in their sweet spot in their comfort zone where they may be where they totally intended to be in the first place, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Not everybody wants to be global. Some people are cool where they are. So, and there are a lot of people around the country, a lot of breweries around the country who are doing that, and they're doing a kick-ass job and making some fantastic beer.
Yeah, my reservations apart, because I have my reservations, but I think right now there's a stigma attached to what's happening. But I see a year or two from now, we're gonna see this happen so often that it's going to become a common thing. It might not going to be a big issue, and it is right now, because either that or people are going to stop drinking stuff they love. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be a readaptation for craft beers aficionado, so, and I guess we're going to have to make choices, and I reserve myself the right to choose what I want to drink and who I want to drink from. So, and that's going to set the market, I think, for the coming year.
I agree 100%. Yeah. Freddie, you had an article for a brewery up your way, up in Boston, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much, it kind of basically falls in line with the expansion too. Jack's Abbey out of Framingham, Massachusetts. A lot of people are familiar with them. They brew only lagers. They recently, as of yesterday, opened the doors to the new facility. It's Jack Abbey's Beer Hall. I believe it's like not too far from their old facility anyway. They're only brewing out of their old place now, so they shut down the tap room, etc. They opened up a 67,000 square foot facility with a 175-foot restaurant, big wood fire, pizza oven, and basically want to get the community together, and they figure what better way to get all these local people in Massachusetts together and come down, other breweries, than food and beer. You know what I mean? And they want to keep it like that, and it's pretty awesome. They're going crazy. I mean, they have, I think obviously of their own, they have 24 beers on tap. They came out, they released all their big, what people love, to have. They have on the menu, they got house-made sausages, obviously custom built, like you can make your own pizzas there, braised pork, pulled pork, hamburgers, like the food really good, like a step above like your normal pub food, you would say,
and amazing lagers.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And the beer is ridiculous. I mean, they have all types of Baltic porters. We're talking off air about that. I believe they were going to release some of their Framinghammers, which is the Baltic port, and their variants a little bit later on. But because of this, they kind of like stepped it up, and they released they have vanilla, coffee, peanut butter and jelly. They've got the regular IPLs. What they're known for, their mass risings, etc. And it's pretty cool to see them moving again.
Jeremy,
in a kind of like a smaller way. That's their expansion, But who knows? We don't know how far they want to get the distribution footprint to go, And that's their way of kind of like, again, they wanted to expand, they wanted to brew more, and with that, they're going to be canning in the new facility soon.
Cool.
And they're expanding the barrel program as well.
So I think that those guys are doing a really cool thing, and they found a niche that nobody else is doing, right? They're just straight up doing lagers. That's it. And Jeremy, I don't know if you've had a chance to have any of Jack's Abbey's beers, but they make a coffee barrel aged
Baltic
Baltic
Porter.
porter that is every bit of an imperial barrel aged stout. This is a 10% Baltic porter aged on coffee and bourbon barrels, and it's stupid.
This is why I love talking to you East Coast guys. You're turning me on to all kinds of stuff I never heard of.
They also have that same line. They have one called the Lagunitas Monster, which is a 15% ABV Imperial Baltic Porter.
Virginia has a brewery called Hardwood Park. If you ever come to the East Coast, another amazing brewery that's just thriving.
Awesome. All right, so guys, let me run down the list of releases here coming up, and I think we mentioned these guys last week, but it's worth mentioning again because it's October. Star Hill down in Crozet, Virginia, their Oktoberfest is coming out this week right here. Epic out of Salt Lake City, Utah, their Big Bad Baptist Imperial Stout was released on today. Hardywood Park out of Richmond, Virginia, who Gil was just talking about, their rum pumpkin aged farmhouse beer aged in Caribbean rum barrels at 10.5% ABV. That's coming out on Saturday. Funky Buddha out of Oakland Park, Florida. They're coming out with their snowed in bourbon barrel aged Imperial Porter on October 6th. Shout out to my daddy because that's his birthday. Boulevard and Cigar City are coming out with collaboration number 5 Tropical Ale. Actually, they just came out with that. That was released on the 29th. Boulevard is also coming out with their Imperial Stout X with tart cherries, September 29th as well. Dew Claw out of Baltimore, their Devil's Milk American Barley Wine Style Ale, clocking in at 11.5%. It's hitting shelves on October 12th. Surly out of St. Paul, Minnesota, their Rye Whiskey Barrel Aged Darkness Imperial Stout. Still got a while to go for that. That's coming out October 24th, but you should seek it out if you're in the area. Sweetwater out of Atlanta, Georgia, they have their Bourbon Barrel Aged Imperial Stout, 11.3%, October 4th. Harpoon Charles Pale Ale, that's just for you, Charles. They brewed that one with reclaimed purified St. Charles River water by reverse osmosis. That was released on yesterday. New Belgium is coming out with their Hop Kitchen Series Hop Stout. It's an 8% Imperial Stout with 100 IBUs, brewed with Equinox. Shout out to Lagunitas for their Equinox Pale Ale with oats in it. Chinook and Willamette, that was released last week. And Terrapin, they're releasing The Walking Dead Blood Orange IPA October 5th, which just happens to coincide almost with the beginning of season 6 of The Walking Dead. So you have that.
I want to try that beer. Just.
Oh, the Blood Orange IPA.
I'll add one. It's a re-release of Omegang's Iron Throne, their first of the Game of Thrones series. They've re-released that.
Oh, cool.
What is Omegang Cherry? What beer is that? I just saw a picture today. Do you know what it is, Charles?
No idea. I'll have to check that out.
He froze.
Jeremy, you guys have any new releases coming up? I know you just released your Imperial Pills.
Yeah. Well, we have a lot of specialty releases that I can't hype up because I don't think they make it anywhere. But the big deal is one that I know everyone's heard of, and that's Brown Shugga. We're brewing that. We're brewing that right now.
Awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
We're going to talk to you about Brown Shugga in a little bit when we get off. All right. So for festivals coming up, Jack's Abbey, Freddie just spoke about that. Their beer hall that's going to be opening up this week. Make It Funky. I'm going to be going to this one. This is at a local brewery, Denizens Brewing, out of Silver Spring, Maryland. That's their Sour Beer Fest. That's going to be on Saturday. I'm going to brave the torrential downpours and make it anyway. Yards Brewery out of Philly, they're coming out with their Pink Affair. That's on October 4th, and that's the special one they do where some of the proceeds go to benefiting breast cancer research. So if you like beer with a cause, definitely seek out Pink Affair by Yards Brewery out of Philly. Helen Oktoberfest in Helen, Georgia. That goes from September 11th to November 2nd. That's September to November. That's a long Oktoberfest. I just know that. Big Bear Lake Oktoberfest, September 12th to October 31st, weekends only. Fredericksburg Oktoberfest in Frederick, Texas. That's October 2nd to the 4th. Modesto Oktoberfest in Modesto, California, October 2nd. America on Tap in Evansville, Indiana, as well as San Diego, California. Those are both going to be on October 3rd. Sister of the Holy Redeemer Oktoberfest in Huntington Valley, Pennsylvania. Don't have a date on that one, but it's probably going to be in October. Smoke in the Valley, Seymour, Connecticut, October 10th. And Chico Beer Week in Chico, California is going to be going on this month as well. So, any festivals that you're going to be going to, Jeremy, coming up?
Man, after Burning Man, I'm roached. Yeah. So I did Burning Man. I did.
I don't think anybody else called that.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to be using that now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. Well, Jeremy, man, we appreciate more than you know you taking some time out of your day to spend some time with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, bro.
You know, we think that you guys brew fantastic beer, and it's very reassuring to hear you say that regardless of what's done with your beer, it's gonna be Lagunitas beer. It's gonna be done a specific way and live up to the standard that you guys have worked so hard to create. So with that, you know, we like to tell you cheers, and everybody else, be sure to join us next week. We're gonna have Lakewood Brewing out of Texas on. So until then, get some great beer, get some great friends, and mind those P's and Q's.
Cheers.